House Local Government and Municipal Finance Committee will come to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Chair Fitzgerald.
Here.
Representative Burns.
Here.
Shannon. Breen.
Present.
Rogers. Hill. Here. Hoskins. Here. Ties. Present. Zorn. Here. Puckett.
Here.
Bizat.
Here.
McGold.
Here.
Preston.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 members. You have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. With that, I need a motion to approve and adopt and approve the minutes from our last meeting on April 24th. That motion is made by Representative Pies, and seeing no objection, the minutes will stand approved. Today, we will be taking testimony on House Bills 5598 and 5599, Representative Liberati's deed fraud bills, which would create an act to punish persons who procure or place upon record spurious or fraudulent conveyances of real estate with intent to deceive. Rep. Liberati is here ready to testify today. So, Rep. Liberati, you can feel free to come up when you are ready. And he is joined by Mr. Bernard Youngblood from the city. Wayne County. Wayne County. Thank you very much. Oh, excuse me. I also have Harry, and you're going to have to help me out with this. Kalogerakis. Just like the way it's spelled. Silly me. Well, thank you for joining us today. Thank you very much. Representative, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee, for allowing me to testify on these House bills. These bills look to address the rise in fraudulent deeds in the state of Michigan. This problem was brought to me by the Register of Deeds in my district, Bernard Youngblood. His office has seen firsthand how bad actors can forge a person's signature on a quitclaim deed and essentially steal the property from the unsuspecting homeowner. Once these claims are filed, it can become a lengthy legal fight for the rightful homeowner to prove the property still belongs to them. Additionally, this property may then be sold to a third party who believe they were buying the property from the rightful owner. You now have two parties that have become victims, tangled in a legal mess. This is not just a Wayne County problem, but a state of Michigan problem, as other registers of deeds across the state will attest to. These bills will put into statute the crime of submitting fraudulent documents and the penalty and fines associated with it. I'll now turn it over to Bernard, who can get a lot deeper into the weeds.
Thank you. Good morning, committee members, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this issue, which has been ongoing since I took office. A little bit of background: I was born in Wayne County, educated in Wayne County, grade school, high school, and a Wayne State graduate here in Wayne County. Married for 50 years and raised two children, all in Wayne County. So I guess you could say I'm a definite product of Wayne County. Now, prior to election, I had 25 years in real estate experience, primarily in Wayne County as a salesman, a broker, and licensed appraiser. In 2000, I was elected to the Register of Deeds of Wayne County, thereby continuing the Youngblood name since 1941. So now it's been 83 years since a Youngblood has held that office. Very proud of that. Now, the Register of Deeds throughout the country, and I believe there's about 3,500, and only 3,500, in Wayne County, we're responsible for about 900,000 parcels of land. And we take an oath to record and maintain the integrity of the Register of Deeds database. Now, why is that important? The Register of Deeds database is the essence of risk associated by title companies. They use a decision after reviewing our database to ensure real estate transactions. Without a high-quality database, real estate commerce in a community would come to a halt. Title companies would not ensure uncertain chains of title, and that would lead to what's called tangled titles, which leads to an inability to convey a warranty deed. Currently, we've seen a lot of land banks in different counties that cannot render a warranty deed. they are forced to use a quitclaim deed for the reasons I just explained. Now, historically, this is not the first time that we've come before you as a legislative group for an issue. Years ago, with the prosecution of over 400 of stolen homes in Wayne County now, we came to you because we realized that the notary is the gatekeeper of these transactions. Back when I started in the real estate business in 1973, we used 2 witnesses to witness a signature from a purchaser and 2 witnesses for the signature of a buyer. Somehow during the years, that had been eliminated. And now the only witness, in fact, is the notary. During the course of prosecuting a transaction, a real estate forgery transaction, we found that if the notary knowingly and willingly participated in this transaction, their punishment was that for a misdemeanor. We didn't think that fit the crime. And so we appealed to you and we raised that level to a felony. You then passed a law. When I say you, might not have been you personally, but the legislation of Michigan passed it to make that notary commitment a crime, raised it to a felony with prison time. Been very successful to curtail some of this activity. Now, the document of choice for fraudsters today is a quitclaim deed, but that's an old and very valuable document, a legal document, when used appropriately for the estates and marriages and divorces, and preferably prepared by a knowledgeable attorney. In more recent years, fraudsters have been aware of the ease of preparation of a quitclaim deed and the resulting incredible destruction in which these forms can inflict. Now, the forging of a rightful owner's signature has been observed on quitclaim deeds, liens, mortgages, court orders, court judgments, releases of discharge of mortgages, and probate court documents. We've seen them all. In fact, it was interesting, kind of brought to a head when we were in my office at the Register of Deeds in Wayne County, and we have 9 stations where parties can come up and record a document. A document was slipped over to our representative to record, and the representative recognized one of our own employees' names as selling a property. They stopped for just a moment and walked 12 feet over and said, "Kasha, is this your house, and are you selling it to this individual?" Kasha, our employee, said, "That is my house. I am not selling it to that individual. That is not my signature. Let me at him." Well, fortunately, we contained her, and darned if the computers didn't fail us, and we had to stop. While in the back, we're calling for the sheriff deputies to come over and apprehend this individual. That it all took place, and that individual was prosecuted. After that, I realized, because I had talked to other customers in the office, we have a very large office. At the time, we had about 125 employees, and we still have 23,000 square feet in downtown Detroit. But I could see, because of my past experience of real estate and the number of transactions I've been involved with personally, I realized the paper trail that was happening. And these fraudulent quitclaim deeds primarily are being utilized to steal properties throughout the county. So I contacted our prosecutor and our sheriff and invited them to a meeting, which we had. And after a full discussion in 2005, we established the first mortgage and deed fraud task force in the nation. Since that time, we have been the pathfinders and the trailblazers in deed fraud. We weren't sure how to go about doing it, so it's been a lot of new experiences. But over the 19 years, it's been paying off, and we're protecting people's rights as much as we can. We've prosecuted about a little over 400 individuals. We've returned about 400 homes to the rightful owners. Prior to coming here, I recognized, well, let's take a look and see about the districts of the committee we're going to before. We have 207 stolen properties in your own districts. And here is a list of each of you in Wayne County of active cases we're working on. And that's available for your perusal. Now, more recently, you might have seen it on different media, we've had an investigative task force of over 100 properties were involved. 100 properties when my team in the fraud unit started receiving documents requesting a complaint form, and it turned out we had a 501c3 that the city of Detroit was working with. Their properties were being stolen by individuals in this 501c3. I took this information to the Detroit mayor, and Mayor Duggan, the following day, we proceeded to escalate our investigation. We were joined with Detroit Police Department, the FBI, and the Attorney's Office. An 8-month investigation led to multiple arrests, and the investigation continues. In addition to that, we have another 150 titles that were clouded over by an individual. We finally were able to apprehend them. At that, individual pled insane, so that is now going through the process to prove whether he is insane to stand trial or not. But those titles remain captured. In addition, I mentioned we have another 400 titles that are clouded because they were also stolen, unfortunately. And there's a variety of reasons why people steal homes. It's basically for greed and their own profiteering, their own enrichment. Although we have had properties that were stolen and then insured and then set ablaze. We've had multiple stolen properties that were abandoned properties, and then they were spruced up and rented by the individual perpetrator. And that individual was bold enough to say, don't send me a check. He didn't want a mailing address out there. I'll stop by every 2 weeks and pick up your cash. Another individual was convicted after stealing a number of homes, but prior to going to prison, we feel that he was going to skip town. Unfortunately, that case was also witnessed on media. After buying a large number of new clothes for his vacation, if you will, the clerk at the store recognized him from the media, called our task force, and we went out on a Saturday or Sunday and picked him up prior to his reporting to prison on Monday. So the media has been following these stories and are a great asset for us. We also had an individual, we called it the downtown takedown, where he was stealing properties and then arranging them in our office to be sold to another individual. We arranged to pick him up at that time and took him down and arrested him. Also, we had an individual who had fleeced his fiancée. I don't think that was a very starry-eyed romance after that conviction. He's starry-eyed maybe through bars. But anyway, We believe it's now time to change the laws to disincentivize this type of crime. 5598, 5599 will begin that process. And our best step is to make this a felony to stop these destructive forged documents into the Register of Deeds database. By doing so, we'll send a message that Michigan protects the property rights that come along with home ownership and any property ownership. Will reflect the value of the Registry of Deeds database and help its victims. This legislation will foster the growth in the state of Michigan and champion the American dream of home ownership. I pray that today Michigan legislators begin a new unique pathway in protecting property rights and set a national model, because this isn't only a problem here in Michigan. Before you is a document, a binder, full of all states that have this problem with stolen properties. You have the opportunity here to begin doing something about it to protect that Register of Deeds database and make it a felony to put these forged documents in the database. I believe other states will follow your action. It's like we're trained firemen, but we have no water in the hose to back our oath to protect and maintain the database. Thank you for the opportunity. I'd love to entertain any questions.
Mr. Deputy, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't have any comments prepared to make.
Okay. We do have a few others who wish to testify today. We have a couple of questions I believe for you specifically, so we'll have those questions here first. Representative Breen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So these are the dirty deeds bills, we're calling them now? Okay. This is good. I've heard about these problems. They are obviously not unique to Wayne County, and if somebody is purposefully trying to cheat somebody out of their own real property, I agree, it should be a felony. Absolutely. I am a little concerned about some of the language, and I understand there are some people that are going to maybe help tighten that up. Sir, you mentioned that notaries being sort of like the gatekeeper of this. Now, from what I understand also, notaries, you just show up often. Here's my ID. This shows who I am. And that's all you are going to notarize, is that I am who I say I am, and I'm going to sign this paper. I want to make sure that some innocent notaries aren't perhaps caught up in this. If they are part of the scheme, obviously. I just want to make sure that the language is tight enough to make sure that we are targeting the real people who are behind this and not somebody who is simply saying this is a person who say they are. Is there any suggested language that you guys are aware of to make sure that this is airtight? Are you working with particular parties to make sure that we're targeting the real people that are causing these problems?
Yes, we are working on that. We're having those conversations going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Hill.
Thank you for an illuminating presentation. I serve up in the Upper Peninsula where computerized records are still coming along. And some of my, particularly, I think my counties, often the clerk is also the chief administrator, is also the notary, is also all these roles tied into one. I have counties with populations of less than 10,000. In these cases where these people are wearing these multiple hats at the same time, I just wanted to raise that as a, I'm sure that we please consider that. I'm not a lawyer, so, and so understanding that these people may be the same person in terms of notary and clerk and how that's managed. I just don't know. Hopefully that's already been addressed. I wanted to raise that question and that question of how do we help these people get the properties back? Like, it sounds like this is a proactive measure to try to prevent this crime. Maybe someone could speak a little bit to how we then help people get the properties back as well.
Well, thank you. Currently, there is no disincentive to doing this crime. It is not a crime to put a forged document into a Register of Deeds database. It is a crime to forge a document, but not to insert it into the database. And that's what I believe we are trying to prevent. These new bills also will reflect that and shift that burden from quieting title to the prosecutor. We will be able to take, once a Register of Deeds office verifies that a formal complaint was brought into their office, they will be able to verify the chain of title is a legitimate complaint, and then put that evidence together and pass the package on to the prosecutor's office, and for the prosecutor to then prosecute. It'll be their decision. Now, that cost of quieting title today, I understand it's about $4,000 to $5,000 for these victims. That will not be required if the courts and the judges use to their availability the right to reverse the property back to the rightful owner. So that was a great point. I appreciate you bringing that up. The court, I believe, has that right now. We've seen that in action in the hundreds of cases that we've prosecuted.
Thank you. Representative Begol.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to applaud your efforts on this. I mean, I know, having been an elected sheriff, that this is a real problem. And I've talked to the detectives that are responsible for investigating these crimes. I'm actually working on a bill draft that would require a fingerprint at the time, as well as the signature, so those detectives have at least somewhere to start with trying to identify who these people are that have been forging people's signatures and things of that nature. Is that something that you think would work well?
In the past, we have taken a look at that, and we've worked with U.S. government fingerprint experts, and we elected not to do so because our documents come in, and because of the size of our county, we will receive upwards of 400 to 450,000 documents. But they all don't come in to our office. We have probably 80% of the documents now coming in through what's called e-recording. E-recording is a process where the document is sent to a company that has a portal that can send documents electronically to any nation, any county in the nation. In addition to that, individuals can come to our office and drop documents off, even if they're not a drafter of the document. They can FedEx documents, email, however. So we elected, after consulting with the fingerprint experts, that that would not be an appropriate use for our office.
Okay, thanks for that input.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on, Representative Pies, is this question specific to Mr. Youngblood here? Okay, go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering, would this also apply to non-residential properties or to properties where, like, apartment buildings? Or
My understanding is the bill is written that it will take any document that's set into the Register of Deeds database. Again, it's not just deeds. Not all deeds are good deeds, but it also is liens related to property. It's also court orders related to property. It's also mortgages and discharge. We've seen them all that have been falsified or forged. So I believe, yes, we have 2 complaints now on Woodward large commercial properties that have been stolen with forged deeds.
Okay. And the $5,000 fine, would that be per property, or like somebody comes before and they've got like 10 properties? Is that just the $5,000 fine once, or is it per property?
I would love to see a much harsher fine.
Yeah, so would I.
It's not my suggestion.
Okay.
I've never written a bill before.
Okay.
I would love to see a larger prison sentence. Some people have gone years with having their home taken away from them without getting it back.
Yeah, I noticed here that our House fiscal analysis says that the felony probation supervision average is about $5,400, and so I thought maybe something to at least cover a year of probation, but.
Again, I leave that to your hands. Thank you.
And just an FYI, I've heard this is a real problem amongst communities where English isn't the first language. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. With that, we have others testifying. We'd like to thank you for your testimony today. Thank you very much for being here. I'd encourage you to stick around in case there are additional questions that may be answered by you, that you just remain here in the committee room for that opportunity, should it arise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
With that, we have one person wishing to testify by Zoom, wishing to speak in support of the bill, Katie Kelly, Register of Deeds for the County of Saginaw. And Ms. Kelly, if you are there, you can begin when you are ready.
Hi, thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Katie Albasta Kelly, and I'm the Saginaw County Register of Deeds. Today, I'm here representing the Michigan Association of Registers of Deeds as their 2024 president. And thank you for allowing the Michigan Association of Registers of Deeds the opportunity to weigh in on House Bills 5598 and 5599. Protecting landowners from property fraud is a priority in the state of Michigan as well as nationwide. The Michigan Association of Registers of Deeds supports the strengthening of penalties regarding those individuals who knowingly and intentionally execute or record fraudulent documents in our offices. The Michigan Association of Registers of Deeds supports the intent of House Bill 5598 and 5599. We look forward to working together with our partners in the real property industry and the Michigan legislature to ensure that the bad actors are held responsible. Thank you for your time.
Wonderful. From the committee members, any questions for Ms. Kelly? You were so thorough and comprehensive. No questions for you today, but thank you so much for your testimony and for being here representing your organization.
Thank you.
We do have another person wishing to testify in opposition to the bill, David Pearson from the Real Property Law section of the State Bar. Mr. Pearson, you are welcome to come forward and begin when you're ready.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and as the chair said, I'm here on behalf of the Real Property Law section, which I should say is a voluntary organization of real property lawyers within the State Bar of Michigan. The State Bar itself is mandatory and is not taking a position on this bill. We, as real property lawyers, do, however. And I should hasten to say our opposition is based on where and how the statute is amended. We quite agree that there's been a dramatic increase in fraud and fraudulent documents recorded with the Register of Deeds, and it is an issue that should be dealt with. And has been pointed out with some of the questions before me, making it a crime makes a difference. Because if the answer I have to give my client, excuse me, is that, well, you can sue, it means 2 to 3 years of litigation and the expense of litigation, which many people can't afford. This is not the sort of issue that attorneys take on a contingent fee basis. And if, in fact, there's a threat of criminal prosecution, that can move things along quite rapidly on the civil side, where otherwise whoever has the money has plenty of time to play the system and drag it out. Our concerns are twofold. One, where the amendment goes, and two, the specific terms of the amendment. With respect to the second, the language is very broad, and as Representative Hill mentioned, notaries, and Representative Breen as well, notaries look at the identity of the person signing the document. They can't and don't do anything more than that. They look at your driver's license, and then they go ahead and notarize. The way the bill is written, notaries and, in addition, title companies who often record documents in connection with other transactions or with other documents that are being recorded, frankly, as a courtesy to clients as part of a follow-on to a transaction. The way the bill is written, we conceive that, in fact, they could be responsible, although, frankly, they have no knowledge. They're effectively in the same position as the Register of Deeds. The job of the Register of Deeds under Michigan's recording statutes is to determine that a document is in recordable form. That's it. And if it's in recordable form, it's not the register's job to determine what the substance of the document is, because they can't know. And as the bill is written, it appears to, in essence, suggest that registers should be reviewing the contents of these documents before they record them, putting aside having to read 60-page mortgages. Where the issue comes up, I can give a good example. I'm one of 6 children, and when my mother died, I have a brother who's an estate and trust attorney, and so we knew he was in charge, because he would know. He was the trustee of the trust. He was the personal representative of the estate. And so when the distribution came, he was recording deeds to all of us. I ran across this with a friend who's also the only attorney in his family, 5 brothers and sisters. And when the property was being distributed, he does the deed to each of the 5 of them, including the deed as trustee to himself. The Register of Deeds refused to record it and said, you can't transfer property to yourself as trustee. Now, it happens the register, of course, has no knowledge of the family background and shouldn't. There's no reason that a register has to have that kind of knowledge. That's an issue to be raised by his brothers and sisters, frankly, in the probate proceedings or to do with the trust. And had he, in fact, acted fraudulently, this would address this criminally, but in fact it was nothing more than a standard family transaction after a death in the family. And I guess the reason I raise that point is that registers can in fact investigate after the fact if they see something that happens, but their duty as the register is simply to say, is this document in recordable form? And charging them with actually reviewing the documents puts them, frankly, in an impossible position, and not just in Representative Hill's district. There are many registers who serve multiple duties and who simply don't have the resources to do those sorts of things, and this really shouldn't be their charge. For that reason, we think, rather than amending the recording statutes, the existing provision in 565.371 should remain. And in fact, the identity theft provision that's there should still be there. But what should be amended is, in fact, in Chapter 750, the Penal Code of Michigan, there is a section on frauds, false pretenses. It addresses mortgage fraud. It addresses situations very similar to what's addressed in this bill, although this adds an additional crime, which we think is worthy, but that's where it belongs. It shouldn't be with the recording statutes where it suggests, as we say, both in the language and its placement, to charge the register with these extra duties, which we find often means that documents which should be recorded are rejected because the register simply doesn't know the context. The broad language, frankly, can be addressed. We've made suggestions on how that can be changed, which we think will eliminate the possibility that innocent notaries and title companies and attorneys who are recording documents from someone else in connection with the transaction and have no knowledge that fraud is being committed would be part of the prosecution. With those suggestions, we think what the bill seeks to do is a good object, and certainly don't oppose that, and would be glad to work with the sponsor in order to get there. Thank you.
It sounds like in many cases we are looking at some continued conversation with the sponsor on the bill language across the board, so I think that we can expect that here over time. Looking to the committee members to see if we have any questions for Mr. Pearson. Okay. Seeing none, Mr. Pearson, we appreciate your testimony today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I have one card to read in, not wishing to speak in support of the bill. Barb Farah, from this, representing the city of Detroit, and no other cards. No absent members today. With that, with no further business before the committee today, this committee will stand adjourned.